Hello, everybody. It's Erik J. Olson once again for your lunchtime live. Today, I have a very special guest, Michelle Pippin, who we used to have an office side by side with one
We were
another.
suite mates.
We were back in the day. So, I'll tell that story in a minute. But Michelle, why don't you introduce kind of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Michelle Pippin. I'm local to Hampton Roads. I went to Great Bridge High School and Virginia Tech for college. And now I own Women Who Wow, and it's a membership for seriously driven women entrepreneurs. If you're not seriously driven, like no need to apply. But we've grown really quickly, and we have now members in every state in about 8 countries. And we are just all about doing success our own way. But I'll tell you, like, I did not go into business thinking I was going into business. In fact, I didn't even know I was in business for a little while. I live in a small town in North Carolina, and they do not offer business licenses unless you're like a doctor or a contractor or whatever. So even
Wow.
getting a bank account was a little bit of an issue. And so, I just kind of thought when my oldest daughter was born, I just quit my job. I'm married to a Chesapeake public school teacher, and he's amazing. But we had $213 in savings, right? Like that's what we had tucked aside. And I took $50 of that and risked it on
Wow.
kind of doing
Yeah.
my own thing. And that's how my business journey started. And it was all in a quest to kind of make a living somehow, cobble together a living somehow from home around my growing family. And, eventually I learned I was in business and got really good at that. And I had a HR business for a little while. And I figured out that I hated the business. I hated doing the HR work. Like, if you know me, details are not my thing. It was like soul killing, but I love selling it. And I thought, you know what? Like, I deal with enough business owners to know, like, they hate selling and marketing. They love what they do. And I'm
Yeah.
opposite. So I'm going to make selling and marketing what I do. And it
Yeah.
just kind of evolved from there.
Yeah, that's a great story. I didn't know that about the $213 or the $50. So
Yeah.
I have a question about that. I mean, certainly you leveraged 25% of your savings at the time. You got
My
50
life
bucks.
savings.
That 50 bucks meant so much to you. What did you do with that 50 bucks?
I know exactly what I did with that $50. So I'll tell you the money that actually paid off for me. Right in that first year, based on that $50 investment, I made $63,000. Right, which I didn't even know I was a success story. Right, I was just kind of making ends meet. I had no idea that I was actually a business success story. So I spent $32 on stamps because a roll of 100 stamps back then was $32, and so that's what the best money was spent on. I also wasted money on business cards. I've never attended a networking event, so I don't know what I thought I was going to do with them. Maybe impress people at the food line. I don't know. So that was a waste. And I think that I maybe got some folders or something like that, but bulk of it was on the stamps. And that's how I grew my business. I sent out 100 letters to 100 people who might know my name or my husband's name. And I essentially said, if you have work I can do, like back then, like on the phone or on fax or on
Yep.
email, then I will do it. And and then I mailed them out 10 letters at a time because I instinctively knew I'd need to follow up. Right. So I mailed out 10 letters at a time, and then I'd follow up the next week with those 10 and mail another 10.
But see that, okay, that is so smart because you targeted those people, right? And those stamps were expensive to you. You only had
Yeah.
so many of them before you ran out of money. So I think what most people do is they will go to those networking events and they're really just hoping and praying that they bump into someone who maybe kind of sort of has a need for them. But you did the research and you sent them a letter, which is unusual, right? Most people don't do that. They just send an email. You actually with handwritten letter, right?
Yep. Yeah, and
Wow.
can I just say why it's unusual? I think that marketing itself needs to be redefined. Like, if you ask any like business owner, how what do they think they need to do to market themselves effectively? And they'll say, "Get my name out there." And I'm like, really? Like, if get my name out there was a real strategy, I'd have like people on the side of the road with like
Mhm.
women who wow signs, right? But really, it's not about getting your name out there. That's an ego boost. A bank boost is getting my clients in here. So I have no use for an ego boost, but I had need for a bank boost.
No, you're absolutely right. So we're kind of in that we're everywhere category. So we do a lot of marketing and we hear that a lot, like, oh, you guys are everywhere. which is awesome. But what I really want is exactly what you said. I want leads, right? So
That's right.
the only reason to be everywhere is so that those people that see you everywhere come in. And so, yeah, if you're out there with the sign, what's the point of that? Like, you're probably not going to be reaching your target demographic. So
Right.
like, you're spot on, like the targeting and the handwriting, such a good idea. And clearly you went from $50 to what was 60 some thousand.
63,000.
That's crazy. Good for you. That's awesome. All right. So, hey, everybody. We have Michelle Pippin on. She runs and founded and runs Women Who Wow. She has a lot of experience with marketing, and she has a lot of experience with running her coaching platform. And she has some experience with being with me, like working in the office next to me several years ago. So if you have questions about the early days of what it was like when Erik was starting his own company, yeah, she's got the experience. So in Facebook, in the comments, put your questions in there, and we will answer those questions before we run out of time. We will be wrapping this up at 12:30. So if you have a question, ask now. Anything about marketing, anything about coaching, okay? Also, we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but we are going to be giving away a free seat to her Betting on You course. This is something that is normally $297. But Michelle is gracious enough to offer that to anyone who texts in the word array to 757-333-3021. So it's a 21-day journey on mental toughness. So I like how you talk about that. Toughness. I'm looking at your website over here. Seriously driven women entrepreneurs. Like, you're very specific. You don't just want anybody. You want seriously driven entrepreneurs.
Yes.
How difficult is it for you to like find those kinds of people? And do you do a lot of like weeding out from people that come to you?
Yeah, in the earlier months, I started Women Who Wow. It was like a name. It was like what you wrote a check to. It wasn't anything really, right? And I didn't know what Women Who Wow would be when it grew up. But I knew that I didn't want it to be anything related to like the other women entrepreneur groups out there, right? And it's like I would look on these people's websites, and I'm like, that's just not where I go. And also, where are the women attorneys? Where are the women physicians? Where are the real badass women who are like out there, really changing the world? Like, they're not at those groups. They're not at networking groups. Like, where are they? Right. And I just was, so I noticed a hole. And when I thought, okay, I know what Women Who Wow is going to be, I
Yeah.
actually grew, honest to God, for 18 months by print invite only. Print invite only. So if you got an invite, you had the opportunity to pay me to come to a meeting. That was the way it worked. And so we weeded out at first by just targeting well. And then we grew. I had set such a great culture. And these women, when they found their place with Wow, they told their friends, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I do content marketing. That's what I really do. And so my content weeds out pretty effectively for me. You can read my content and you pretty much know, like, am I, would I like her, or do I want to avoid her like the plague? And for a lot of people, they want to avoid me like the plague. I noticed that a lot of women entrepreneurs, now I am married. I said earlier, I'm married to a public school teacher. So, and there's no family money. Like, we both looked, right? Like, it wasn't like we didn't just assume there was no family money. We started like looking. And I didn't have the luxury or the liberty of, like, building a brand, or,
Mm-hmm.
like, I had to make money from day one. And I am so grateful for that now. I kind of resented it then, to be honest, but I didn't want to be around people who were like using business as like something they told their husband about what they did all day.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I wanted women who were in it.
Yeah.
And they're easy to find and easy to spot, but largely as a brand, I make myself easy to spot. It's almost like a whistle that only dogs hear. It's like, people say, I don't know what happened, you just showed up in my feed. I'm like, no, because my content resonates, and
Yeah.
they recognize themselves.
But I think it's really important and really smart what you did. Like, you've identified very clearly the kind of people that you want to work with. And by putting that out there, probably in the very beginning, it may have limited you because you couldn't just work with anybody, but you niched down and you made it very clear who you want to work with. And then mysteriously, those kinds of people were attracted to you. Super
Yeah.
smart.
And, just from a practical standpoint for anybody listening, like, I didn't just do that. Like, at the time when I started Women Who Wow in earnest, I still had private clients that I was writing copy for. You know what I'm saying? Like my bills were getting paid. And I started this so that I could build deliberately. And over time, it just kind of like I dropped
Hmm.
private clients. Now I don't have any private clients. And now it's just Women Who Wow. But I didn't just like willy nilly just be like, I'm just, lopping off
Yeah.
all these
Yeah.
opportunities. So,
Yeah, that's great. I did the exact same thing when I realized I was going to be transitioning from one job to the other. I started freelancing at night,
yep.
and it picked up steam. I didn't make quite as much money as you did in the very well, not as much return on investment, I should say,
Yeah.
but it was very similar where one thing was ramping down and the other
Yep.
thing was ramping up, and I had a plan, right?
Yes.
And so I think that's kind of a mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs find
Yes.
themselves in is that they just cut ties. And then, you had mentioned like you did this on the cheap, you bought stamps. That was your big investment. You didn't put money into, I assume, hiring a lawyer, hiring a CPA, writing a 100-page business plan. You just did it. You
Yeah.
executed it. That's the key. So I love
Yeah.
it.
I still don't have a business plan as an aside, right? Like,
You got an idea, I'm
yeah,
sure.
I don't
Yeah.
even recommend them. But yeah, I mean, I definitely, those things can come. And I think sometimes it's like, people start putting the cart before the horse and they dial down their energy, by the way. Like as entrepreneurs, like, I hate dealing with my attorney. I hate dealing with my accountant. And so when I'm ramping up, like the last thing I want is something that bogs down my energy. And you
Yes.
can always do that later.
Absolutely. But
Try
you know
not
what?
to get legal advice.
I think it's a way of deferring the pain, right? So that it's painful to have to figure out who you're going to target, what your message is, and to handwrite cards. It's not fun, right? And then you have to follow up, and you're super smart. Like you did it in groups of 10 because of the follow up. That's hard work. But deferring by saying, I'm going to work on a business plan for the next year, or I'm going to buy checks from the bank. There's those big books of
Yeah.
checks that are like $100.
Right.
Like you're not actually making progress, right? It's just
And
delaying.
it's delaying the exact thing that you need in order to be successful, which is sales. And I'll be very honest, like a lot of women are turned off by me as a coach, as a mentor, because I'm going to ask things like, are you selling something, right? Like, are you making money? Because I'm not impressed by prep work. I'm not
Yeah.
impressed by getting dressed to go to the gym. Did you actually go, right? And so to me, I'm thinking, I see all of that delay in the prep work. Now, in truth, I don't know what I would have been if I had married like a very wealthy man. Like, I don't know, like if I had that fire inside of me. I didn't look at that as hard. What I did look at was hard was dropping one of my kids off at a daycare. Now, if anybody's kids are in daycare, like no judgment, right? I make a lot of decisions with my kids that other people would make, but that would have been hard for me. Actually, would have been impossible for me. And so everything else that I had to do seemed easier. For me, it like getting a job. I can't even fathom something like that. In fact, when sometimes people would say to me, I'm considering getting a job or like really going hardcore in my business, honest to God, I say, if you can be employed, if that's an option, then I recommend that option for you, right? I can't be employed. And
Yeah.
so like I have no other option but to bet on myself. So it's definitely like choose your hard, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. I'm in the exact same boat as you. And if you're doubting it, then go get a job. You can always get a job, right? This is risky stuff that we're doing here. All right. So we've got a couple of questions, and I also want to dive into betting on you, the course. But just a reminder, if you have questions, post them in Facebook. We're going to go through a couple of the early questions right now or comments. And then also, if you are interested in getting a free seat to the Betting on You course, that's a 21-day journey on mental toughness that Michelle's created. Normally a $297 offering. Text in array to 757-333-3021. Almost had a brain fart there. All right, so we got a couple of things here. We have two comments by Kevin Daisy, who's the co-founder of Array Digital, my company.
Okay.
And the first one is go Hokies. So
Go Hokies, right? Awesome.
and then the second is $213 exclamation point. Great story, Michelle. My first year in business, I went negative $10,000. That's crazy, right? So, but that's kind of typical for a lot of people, right? Because they buy the book of checks, right? They get the business cards, they pay for the membership to all these different networking groups. They're
Yeah, they spend money. And here's my thought. Like, I will never forget going to this house in the mountains, like a house that I rented, for a weekend or something. And there was a big sign on the door that said, "Don't feed the foxes," right? And the reason is if you feed a fox, it'll forget how to hunt, right? Like
Mm,
it'll forget how to dig and hunt. And so a business, like the very definition of a business, your business should give you money. That's the whole point, right? And so when you raise your business by feeding it money and you
yeah,
never demand it produce money, it's like the fox, it'll forget, right? All of a sudden
that's
you
so
think you
good.
have a business and you don't have a business, you have a very, very expensive hobby.
That's so good. Wow, I can't wait for us to like post that little video clip on our social media because that was gold. Very good. All right, a couple others. So I'll say the name last because you may recognize it. Love Michelle! Exclamation point. Coached with her for many years and was an original WoW member. So this is from Lisa Michelle Smith.
Oh, good. Hey, Lisa. That's awesome. Yeah, she was definitely one of the originals, which says a lot about her because she got one of our original print invites
Is
to
that
come to
right?
the meeting, right?
She got
So
one of those super expensive stamps from you.
that's right. That's right.
That's hilarious. All right, and then we have Mark D. Bowers. Would love to. Hold on a second. Would like to hear Michelle and Erik's opinion on SM social media tracking / planning marketing systems, not for content generation, maybe for automated posting. All right, so automated posting tools. I assume he think or is referring to things like Hootsuite, Buffer, stuff like that. What do you think?
Um, Okay, so I'll just be straight. I don't find a great deal of value business wise in pretending to be somewhere that I'm not, right? So now I do have 2 posts a day scheduled, right? That are go out. That actually my oldest daughter now works with me and she posts those and she does great and she schedules them. Other than that, if I am on Instagram, if I am on Facebook, if I'm in LinkedIn, like I'm actually there. I find the energy of that really effective for me. And so now I have used Hootsuite in the past, but
Yeah.
then I stopped using it. It's like, I don't want to pretend to be live when I'm not. I don't want to pretend to be somewhere where I'm not. And I produce hot, fresh content. So I don't use a content calendar. It's just a different way of doing business. But I don't use a content calendar. I'm inspired every day, and I produce content that really touches people. Now, not everybody can do that. This is my business, right? But even when I had the consulting business, I still came hot and fresh as much as I can. So whatever tool you use, right? There's hot ones today. There'll be another hot ones in 6 months. Like, don't focus so much on the tool. Focus on giving your heart into that social media. Your social media
Yes.
is a conversation, right? Be there in
Yes.
person as much as you're willing.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's the key there. It's a conversation, and you're trying to make a connection, right? So, me personally, Mark, I do use a scheduling tool for like my Twitter is where I put the most effort in, and then the company repurposes a lot of that and things like this video through my other social media channels. But personally, I use Buffer, and there's a couple of reasons I did that. When I didn't have a tool like Buffer, it was higher quality when I posted it live, but I wasn't around a lot when other people were around. So like I get up early, 5 o'clock in the morning sometimes, and I'll just have a thought and I would tweet it and no one would see it. Right. So I was like,
Yes.
well, I just want to take that original thought and I want it to go out at a more optimal time. So everything that I push out is something that I've created, something that I've thought of, right? A lot of times it even has typos because I'm just like firing it off, but I'm putting it into something that will schedule it so that I can have more interaction later. Another thing that I think is super important is yes, you have to check in and you have to answer the comments, right? And you want to start that dialogue. So that's where the gold is. I think it's much less about posting and ignoring. Like that doesn't work. It's about the conversation, the dialogue. And I would imagine, Michelle, like you probably do. I would think you do a lot of that. And I bet certainly when you were building the business to where it was now, you probably did a lot more of that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like I always grow a business in the way in which I want to maintain it, right? So like when I was dating my husband, I never like pretended to like cook or clean, right? Like because then when he married me, he'd be very upset, you know. He married me for other reasons entirely. Like that he didn't come in under some like grand idea that I was like a domestic goddess, right? And so when I built the business, I don't want to like, I was never willing to give my life for the business. Like like what I did then is pretty much what I do now. I just have a bigger audience, you know. But I love what you said, and I probably am leaving a lot of opportunity on the table by not repurposing. I create more content than probably 98% of the people online,
Yeah.
and I don't repurpose a whole lot of it. It's all there in my body of work, and I have two ways that I repurpose it, but I could do more. And so I was kind of inspired by what you said, like chopping up the little videos or whatever. But to me, really, it's like a lot of people use those to pretend to be active, right? And so like they push stuff out and they're checking the boxes, but they
Mhm.
never come back. So there's never a
Yeah.
dialogue. It's always like a monologue. And you kind of show like what you think of your market when you never show up to hear from them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. So good. All right. I want to remind everyone one more time, because we're in the last 10 minutes of this live cast. A couple things. One, if you have a question for Michelle, go into Facebook, add a comment, and then we will ask it live on the air. And then two, she's giving away one of her seats, a seat to the Betting on You course, a $297 value. It's a 21-day journey on mental toughness. Text ARRAY, ARRAY, to 757-333-3021. We will be picking someone in just the next few minutes. So text in right away. So speaking of betting on you, tell us about that. What's that all about?
Yeah, so it's probably one of my least expensive courses, but most profound courses that I've ever done, and I've done dozens of online programs, and this is the one that really like has my heart because I realized that every dollar that I've ever made has come from my unwillingness to be intimidated, unwillingness to say no to myself. There's a lot of like mental things, particularly for women entrepreneurs, that we go through, right? Like we are our own editor and critic. We
Mhm.
start to wonder if we're good enough for that, or if the program's good enough, or if it's sexy enough. And we start to say no to ourselves before we ever go to market. And I realized that one of the reasons that I could, you know, be as successful as I am and so quickly, even in the early days, is I never wasted time. I never doubt myself. I never tell myself no. And this is not something like that I was just born with. I have cultivated a mental toughness, right? That is,
Yeah.
it's not circumstantial. It doesn't go down when like mess is going on with my life. And so when I realized like, oh my gosh, I can teach this because what I do to build my inner game is what keeps me consistent and disciplined and, you know, unwilling to like do it their way in order to fit in or be chosen or whatever.
Yep.
And in that way, it's like that's why I have the success that I have. So I love it. It's my favorite program.
That is awesome. And yeah, I think it's the mindset that you set for yourself, right? Like this is your game. You set the rules.
Yep.
And if people don't want to play by that, then that's fine, right? More
Yep.
power to them. But if someone's going to come into your world or you're going to interact with them, then you should have the ability to set up the parameters, right? And it's all
Absolutely.
about like deciding that you want to be happy, you want to be productive, and that you believe in yourself, that you have confidence. I was literally just talking to someone who works for us, and I was telling them like, you're good. You're in this position for a reason. You just need to have the confidence to believe in yourself.
It's crazy. It's like I always like I say I'm half joking. I'm probably totally joking. I'm totally not joking at all. But I say, you know, my confidence far exceeds my actual ability. And I'd have it no other way, right? Like because there's a lot of people who have abilities that are out off the charts, right?
Mhm.
But they don't bet on themselves. They don't
Yeah.
back themselves. And some of them are in jobs that they hate or businesses that are barely mediocre, and they just need a little bit of inner muscle to go
Yeah.
out there and command the fees that they want, and you know also demand, like for me, I want a life like you know, I have a lot of rules regarding like people don't call me, right? Like you're like, oh, where's your phone number? I'm like, phone number. In fact, one of the business cards that I got, I'll never forget. I called, I said, you put my phone number on the freaking business card. And I said, who does that? He's like, everyone. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, well, you know, I can never use these. The last thing I want is somebody calling me without an appointment, you know? And so I have rules. And in that way, I get to scale and grow without fear of the business taking over me. And
Yep.
so that all comes from mental toughness.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Exactly. So I love everything you just said. Really, really good. We're going to get a lot of really good repurposing video out of
Oh,
this.
good.
All right. So a couple of other comments and questions. So we have, again, Lisa Michelle Smith. What suggestions do you have for people who have gotten a lot of their new business from in-person workshops slash talks and can't do than more of that anymore? Sorry. They can't, I said, so they got a lot of business in person. They can't do a lot of that anymore, or for the time
Yes.
being, right? COVID, right?
Absolutely. And so, you can do different things online, right? I was just invited to do this thing. It was really cool. It's basically setting up with her network. She's setting up like networking calls, and I'm not going to do it, but it's like 15 minutes, and she sets it up with two people, like from her email list or whatever.
Mhm.
And so, just getting creative, or
Very cool.
going and scheduling time to unite other people. So, host your own events, right? And I'll tell you, and Lisa would know this about me, but I started my own events plain and simple because nobody else invited me on their stage.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, screw you. I'll have my own event,
Yep.
And so that's exactly what I did. And so you can have your own virtual events. You can host your own, like be creative about, one day a week, even setting up 10, half-hour appointments where you're introducing four entrepreneurs, right? And
Yeah.
they schedule it on some like scheduling software. And there's a lot of ways to be creative. And I'll be honest with you, I don't ever want to have to show up in order to make money, right?
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
that kind of ties me down a little bit. And so, to the extent this is a kind of can be a gift to us if it gets us out of things that kind of kept us ankle chained to something that we're not in control of, right? So I would take online and get digital and be creative.
That is so good. That's such good advice. So, so as an example, we're doing this lunchtime live right now, and we did start doing this before COVID hit, but we also had another thing that we did, which was an in-person marketing meetup called Marketers Anonymous. We would do it in downtown Norfolk once a month, and we would bring some speakers in, someone like Michelle, and it was great, but it was also limited to about 50 people,
Yep.
and it never really expanded beyond that. So once COVID hit, we doubled down on this, and we're doing it every single week with a guest. And this is actually working out better for us. So I would
Yes.
say take what you've done, just like Michelle was saying, take what you've done in person and try to translate that to platforms like Facebook. Like there's no reason you can't do a lunchtime live just like we're doing right now on your own. Just do it. You may only have one or two people that show up for the first time, but so what? After 10 times, you'll have 10 people, then maybe 20, right? So just do it. You don't need
Yeah,
permission. Awesome.
absolutely.
All right, let's see here. We have Veronica Walsh Gonzalez. Love your authenticity, Michelle.
Thank you. Yes, I don't
Right.
know anything else to be. One of my best compliments is when people come to my events and they haven't met me in person, they'll say, as if surprised, like, oh my God, you're the same in person as you are online. I'm like, I don't know anybody else to be. So thank you for that. It's my best compliment.
And then we have one last one, and then we'll be wrapping up and announcing the winner. So Mark Bowers, once again, he says, I dig that math. Confidence divided by competence is greater than 1.0. So that's a complicated
Yes.
formula. I
Yep.
think he's saying, yes, confidence. So have more
Absolutely.
confidence and competence. Very
Yes.
cool. All right. So one last time, I want to remind everybody it's too late to text in, but Michelle has been gracious enough to give away a single seat to her Betting on You course, a 21-day journey on mental toughness, a $297 value. And the winner is dramatic pause. All right. The last four digits of the phone number the last four digits are 3432. So 3432 is the winner. We will be texting you. And if we don't already have your email address, we'll be in contact and we'll connect you with Michelle.
Awesome. Awesome. And also, if anybody wants a free week of Women Who Wow, and I'll get you a free week of Women Who Wow membership.
Awesome. Is that the
You'll
best
either love
way?
it or hate it, but you won't be in between.
Is that the best way for people to contact you? Going to
Yes.
say that one more time.
It's m.me/women who wow. Women
Wow.
plural.
Nice. Very cool. All right. Very awesome. All right, Michelle, is there anything that I left out that you think the audience should know about?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I just want them to, really honor their own intuition and go out there and be authentic in their own marketing, right? When you're authentic, you stand out. I think there's a lot of Me Too marketing out there, right? Like, oh, I do that too. I do that too. I'm just like them. And it's like, no, no, no. You've got something
Yep.
so unique, and there's a whole market out there waiting for it. So, you do you.
That is spot on. That was a great way to end this. I really appreciate you, Michelle. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.